So I'm picking up the thumb from the hand model. We've already extracted, or I guess I think I might have duplicated one of the other fingers, and I moved it down. Something that I forgot to point out in the previous video is, especially with the thumb, you want to get the shape as true as possible, and when it's lined up with the grid like I have here. Once you rotate it into position, it's a lot harder to work with. So just make sure that you're happy with the thumb in this, where it's lined up with the other fingers. You can see that I thinned it out around these knuckles, and it's also a lot wider than the other fingers, like a normal thumb is. So let me turn on my reference image. So I'm going to rotate this thumb to line up with my drawn thumb. And I'm going to switch it to object from world. Oh, it's not even working. Let me try that again. It's going to be a lot easier if you can have your rotation oriented to the object, especially for the thumb. Yeah, so I don't know if you watched the other video, but I duplicated one of these other fingers and I extracted it and moved it in line with the thumb, because the normal human thumb does not rotate on the same plane as the other four fingers. All four of our fingers, they rotate together, but the thumb rotates on a different axis. So we build that one a little bit differently. I mean, we use the same geometry, but it's hinged a little bit differently. So let me see if I can freeze this transformation again and line this up properly. Modify, freeze transformation. Oh. Well, I'll just go ahead and just play with this because I'll just build it. Okay, so I'm just positioning it, and then the bad thing about the way it's working right now is I have to rotate in the X and the Z to get it into position, where before I would just rotate it in one axis to get it into position. Let me turn this off for a second. So yeah, that's pretty close to where I want it as far as the alignment. You can see that it's not aligned with the other fingers. And this is really important when you're modeling, I'm sorry, not modeling, but when you're rigging your character. You also want to make sure that orientation of the joints is right down this the same path as this geometry. But this is going to do fine for us for as far as the model that we're building here. So I have positioned it. In fact, just looking at this without my grid, actually, I think it'll be okay. I need to add more geometry to the palm so that I can connect in the hand with the palm. I'm sorry, the thumb in with the palm. So I'm going to go to Insert Edge Loop and add one down here for the base of the thumb, that big joint where the thumb connects to the wrist, and then one up here where the thumb connects to the middle of the palm. And with all this extra geometry, I'm going to delete out these faces because they're not used. And let's see. So I'm going to take these extra faces that that were added. In fact, instead of the faces, let me grab the edges. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and grab the faces. And I'm going to extrude them. Extrude. Under Edit Mesh, Extrude. And I'll do this from the top view so I can see where it's going. Drag these out. And when I'm maybe halfway between the palm and the thumb, I'll start to rotate them. And then maybe I'll pull them the rest of the path. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So you can see the thumb, if I count these, the edges around this thumb. Oops, I'm trying to count the edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 edges that make the opening for the thumb. And you can also see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 opening or 6 edges that create this, that are going to create the opening for where the thumb meets the palm. So I'm just going to delete these faces, and I could adjust these just a little bit to make it a little bit easier to visualize. Maybe I'll scale this in a little bit and pull these down just a little bit. All right. So I'm going to use target weld again, and I want to keep the position of the thumb, not the position of these vertices for the palm. So I select the vertex. Actually, I'm going to, like I said, I like to use edge instead of, oh, hold on just a second. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay, I thought that was 2 edges. Anyway, so I'm going to go to target weld, target. It's already set. And I'm going to snap, click and drag the, oh, you know what? Did I forget to do this? Yes, I did. So before I can target weld, if it doesn't let you target weld, most likely you forgot, like I did, to combine these 2 objects together. So I select one and then shift select the other. I say mesh, combine. And now I can select my edge and target weld them closed. There we go. And I'll select every other one, and it's closed. So there you have a working thumb. And of course, we do have a knuckle out there, but it's not this high. So I can pull this down and reshape these. It's probably a good idea to pull these 3 forward and down a little bit to shape it more like a thumb, like a hand.
Probably answered this question before, but why did you only weld every other edge?
Yeah, so let me give you an example of, it's more just for the sake of efficiency. So if I target weld this right here, you can see that as soon as I did that, it already target welded what was following it and what was previous to it, those edges as well. So that's, if I do every single edge, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oh, five welds. But if I target weld every other one, it's closing off those gaps, and I'm only doing 1, 2, 3 welds. So it's just a little bit more efficient.
So the typology will still be the same and it'll still connect properly. It's just faster. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and one thing that I like to do to make sure that my welds are actually closed is I'll take my object and I'll go to surface sculpt geometry tool, and I'll use like a relax tool or something, and I'll just follow that weld and make sure that it doesn't separate anywhere. And of course, this is not where I want to keep it, so I just undo that and I'll go underneath and do the same thing. And I'm just looking for anywhere that weld might have not merged. And this is actually a good idea to do around your fingers as well, but you can see that they're closed. So that's just a nice test to make sure that your welds are actually closed before you move forward. Any other questions? All right, so getting back to our model, I'm going to shape this a little bit more like a hand. and pull some of these guys down. All right. So it's working pretty well as a hand. The other thing is I like to hit smooth mode just to check and see how accurate my hand is. Does it feel like a hand? Is it, you can see there's some flat spots. So I would actually pull this out so it's rounded more, as well as over here, because there's meat there. In fact, I would even do that on all my fingers. You can see that they all have flat spots. So maybe take this. Oh, let me do that again. Grab these guys and pull them out just a little bit. And so I would do that on, in fact, you might want to do that before you weld them, just so that it's a little bit less cumbersome to reach in between those. But so the other part that I want to add is just a little bit more detail, because our hands, we have pads and on the front of our hands, as well as we have these knuckles on the back. And right now it just reads as flat geometry. So I'm going to take every other face on the top and maybe even on the bottom, and I'm going to extrude. You can do these one at a time as well, but what you don't want to do is grab all 4 of these and extrude them, because you want to have separation between the knuckles. So that's why I'm just doing every other one. Let's see. Extrude. Oh, mesh tools. No, edit mesh, extrude. And I'll scale them out in the Z. Oh, maybe I'll just hit R and scale them out in the Z. There you go. And you can see they're not really nicely shaped right now, but we'll get to that. And then I'll do the same thing for the next. Oops, make sure you don't grab 2 faces. Just grab one and hold down Shift and select the other. And then I'll extrude those and scale them up just a little bit. There you go. And I see there's a question, a couple of chats. You can do all of them and tell it to keep faces separate. Okay, good. I haven't tried that before. So the thumbs rest, yeah, that's a good point. But the so you can see that our knuckle does not spread all the way across the thumb here. So I'm just going to move this geometry in so it's looks more like our knuckle. And you can add more geometry too if you want to, just depending on how much detail you want to have. But the one thing you want to be careful about, any geometry going down the length of the arm, you have to consider how that matches up with the rest of the arm, because eventually that edge flow is going to connect into the body. Another thing I need to do is delete history. And you might want to even add a little, that meat on your thumb right here. You might want to add some geometry there. Very often I'll just kind of tweak the mesh. So I'll grab some of these edges and maybe I'll pull these 2 forward and pull this one in, maybe down a little bit. Maybe I'll even rotate this face to get more of a roundness in that meaty part of your thumb. So yeah, anyways, so that's essentially the hand, and then you would connect that into the arm. Well, of course you'd reposition it, but the other thing I wanted to add to this video was the foot. In fact, you know what, I'm going to stop the video here and I'll make the foot separate because this one's getting kind of long. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share and then stop the recording.